Is it possible to force change? Not only do I believe you can do that, I believe you can make it a lasting thing. Hello and welcome to the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt. It is Saturday, the 28th of November of 2020. Welcome to all coming aboard on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Remember that you can get the podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, and on Spotify. Generally speaking, I think the best way to do that is to search for Kurt's Religion and Politics. But your mileage obviously may vary. The subject of today's little video is the source of change. To begin with, okay, one of the things that I think a lot of people forget is that change can be for the better or for the worse. And change can be away from our nature or toward it. All right, and both of these two things are extremely important. Most of the time, I believe that change requires commitment on the part of the person making the change. If you're making a change to a thing, it's another thing, right? Making a change to a thing is different. But if I didn't believe that it was possible to enforce changes from outside, I wouldn't do things like educate my children. Because educating children, and anybody for that matter, is something that you do because you believe that they will hold that difference that you've made as a result of teaching them to read, to write, to walk, whatever it happens to be, right? If you didn't believe that they were going to hold it, why would you bother to do it? So is it possible for something to change without the person even necessarily being invested in it? To some degree, the answer to that question, I think, has to be yes. Yes, it is. Now, when I say that commitment is required, that's not necessarily true that the person or thing, and certainly not the thing that's being changed, needs to have that commitment, right? They have to be willing to be changed, if you will, but they don't necessarily have to have a commitment toward the particular change that you're trying to get them involved in. Let's remember, though, that change is typically only important when, A, it's good, it's a change for the better. So if somebody decides they're, for example, in my opinion, going to take up smoking, that's probably a bad change. And two, it lasts. So when somebody quits smoking, if they go back to it, it's really not that significant that they quit. Well, I mean, I'm not saying there's no significance. There'll be something that they'll improve as a result. And maybe, if nothing else, they'll at least reduce the amount they smoke. If a person decides that they're going to change in the way of taking illicit substances, I'm sorry to tell you that I do not believe that that person is probably doing something that's beneficial, and therefore the change is not really a good thing. Now let's make something quite clear. If you are working particularly from self-motivation, the motivation isn't as important as doing the thing consistently, right? Liking it, wanting it, is not nearly as important as dragging yourself out of bed in the morning to get yourself to work, or dragging yourself through the shower every day, or making sure that you eat properly, or not making sure that you don't eat too much, or quitting smoking, or not drinking in excess and deciding that you're going to make that a habit. The important thing that makes that thing that you're doing in terms of, making yourself a different person, the important thing appears largely to be repetition. And I'm not sure that it's always true that if you repeat, say, for example, okay, look, people argue this. Some people say, oh, you can repeat something for a month, and when you do, typically it'll be a habit after a month. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. I'm not sure that in every case anyway that's true anyway. I think sometimes what you have to do is you just have to keep doing it, and before too long it falls into a sort of a habitual thing, right? So the point here is that if you think that you're going to make a change and do it for a month and then it's okay for you to suddenly slack off, the chances are pretty good the change is not going to stick regardless that you did it for a month. And I used to say a lot, look, the fact that you broke your diet by eating a slice of cake doesn't mean you should finish the cake off, right? The point is that you fail at a given change. Also, it doesn't, that doesn't mean you quit. It just means that you have to remember, whoop, I failed at the change. And sometimes it's even desirable for you to um, to break a diet, for example, in order to keep it in the long term and actually have long-term success at what it is that you're doing. And this is something I think a lot of people miss. And that's true for exercise too. Cheat days where you don't work out, cheat days where you eat something that you would consider excessive, eating something that you have a craving for periodically, but reducing the amount of times that you eat it. These are the kinds of things in that kind of change that you can do. And you can do similar things where you don't do a given thing if it's not harmful for you not to do it. It's if you miss a day of medication, for example, you don't just stop taking the medication because you missed a day. That's not how that works. Obviously, as I've said, changing things is different. Typically, when you change a thing, it stays unless you have, there are things that I change that I have to work to make stay, and that's just life. Sometimes you have to do it and do it and do it and do it and do it, and you have to get in the habit of making that change because it resets itself or whatever. The thing resets itself or whatever. But the point is that changing things is an entirely different thing from changing people. Changing people typically requires commitment of some kind on the person making the change, though that's not absolutely necessary that happen. People can be forced more or less against their will to do something over and over again, and they'll pick up the habit of doing that thing as a rule. I used to wear my hair long, and the military cut my hair off, and they cut it off and made me keep it short. And I came to realize that I actually liked my hair short. And from that point on, I've basically made a habit, not always, but basically made a habit of keeping my hair short. Now, they didn't cause me to shave my beard and keep it that way, but I do tend to keep it short as well, keep it short and manageable. But here's the thing. Most important change at least starts from and potentially comes from within. And the person at least has to have a desire to make another individual happy. Sometimes that's not true. Sometimes what happens is that person does the thing and does the thing and does the thing and does the thing, and before too long they've got a muscle memory for it, or it's ingrained in their brain that they need to do that thing and they do it. But much of the time, if that person doesn't really want to make a change, it's not going to happen. I do want to make the point, though, that there are a lot of people who think that a person has to want to make a change in order for that change to stick. And I'm here to tell you, as a person who learned to be able to get up at any hour of the day, and before I learned to do that, I had no reason or care when I got up. I just got up when I got up. Now, to be fair, I am that person who tends to want to be up in the daytime, which is the time most people want that from you. But that having said, I've had to work swing shifts. I've had to work mid shifts, and I had to train myself to get myself up. And where these days I'm back to using an alarm clock a little bit, the truth is I don't need it. And if I wanted to, I generally could pretty much make it so that my sleep schedule is such that I don't have to worry about having an alarm clock to wake me up. For a very long time, I didn't use one at all. These days, I use one, but I don't use any kind of snooze. I make it my habit to be up when the alarm goes off. But the point I'm making here is, it is not what lots of people think, that you have to desire change in order to have it happen. What's true is that's when it's easiest to make change. When you don't want to make the change, it's harder to do it. But realizing I have to do it will often be just as strong a motivation. And having other people change you is also something that will work in the right circumstances, though there's always that possibility you'll slip back from where you were if you really didn't want or don't see the benefit in the change. All right, I need to wrap things up, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Today is Saturday, As I say, what is it today? The 28th of November of 2020. Tomorrow, therefore, will be Sunday, the 29th of November of 2020, and I'm going to try and do another video again tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll be able to do that without any problem. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you're having a good weekend, and hope the weather and so forth are good for you. Hopefully, things aren't terribly bad for you. Again, I'm going to go ahead and try and get a video in tomorrow. Again, my videos and the podcast are available on Rumble, the podcast, YouTube, and of course the podcasts are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Hope you've enjoyed my presentation this morning, and I hope you have a great day. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Saturday, the 28th of November, 2020. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for checking out this video. Remember that you can like it on YouTube and you can give it a rumble on Rumble if you want to do that. I have channels on both YouTube and Rumble. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels. You can subscribe to either one of those if you want to do so. Remember, if you subscribe on YouTube, you probably want to click the notification bell in order to be notified of new content. If you want to see more from me, you can check me out on my blog. That's blogs.kpschubert.com, blogs.kpschubert.com. You can also see my Facebook page. That is Kurt's Religion and Politics on Facebook. You can check out my Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com accounts. My handle on all three of those is at kpschubert. That's at kpschubert. You can check out my podcast. The podcast is at podcasts.kpschubert.com. That's podcast.kpschubert.com. And finally, you can check me out on Patreon. And if you want to support me, that's probably one of the better places that you can do that. I am Kurt's Religion and Politics there. Thanks again for checking out this video, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.